Florida's tourism leaders say they're under assault from the state legislature. The House is pushing a bill that would require the renewal of bed taxes every 8 years.
Right now, Florida's bed tax helps fund concerts, sporting events, and promotions that bring visitors to cities like here in Jacksonville. But if this new plan passes starting in 2026, funding for tourism could drop by 75%.
The growth and rebranding of Bay County as a year-round destination in the last decade has been a testament to tourism promotion and advertising. But an amendment to House Bill 1221 would take bed tax revenue away from tourism and use it to offset county residents' property tax bills.
Florida is known around the world for its beaches, theme parks, and sunshine. But beneath the palm trees, a new political storm is brewing. A recently proposed law, Florida HB 1221, could dramatically change how the state promotes its tourism industry. On the surface, it's about giving local governments more control over how tourism dollars are spent. But behind the scenes, some say this could strip critical funding from Florida's $100 billion tourism economy, impacting small businesses, local jobs, and the state's global image. Today, we're diving into what this bill really says, what the numbers tell us, and what Florida could gain or lose if it becomes law. This is Florida HB 1221 explained, and why it could reshape the future of tourism in America's Sunshine State. Part 1. What is HB 1221? So, what exactly is Florida HB 1221? At its core, it's a state bill that proposes a major shift in how Florida counties manage and spend their tourist development tax, also known as TDT. This is the tax collected from hotel stays and short-term rentals, like Airbnb or vacation condos. Traditionally, that money goes straight into tourism marketing, campaigns to attract domestic and international visitors, promote local events, and boost regional economies. But HB 1221 introduces a new rule. Every county that collects this tax would now be required to reauthorize its use every 8 years through a public vote or county commission approval. If that reauthorization doesn't happen, that county could lose control of those funds, and the money might be redirected to other local priorities, like infrastructure, affordable housing, or even property tax relief. Supporters of the bill say this is about accountability. They argue that since this tax comes from visitors, local residents should have a say in how it's used, especially if they're facing rising housing costs or underfunded schools. But opponents say HB 1221 does something far more dangerous. They believe it undermines the consistency and long-term strategy that tourism promotion requires. Because without guaranteed stable funding, counties may struggle to run multi-year campaigns or compete with other tourist-heavy states like California, Nevada, or New York. And here's the thing. Florida isn't just any travel destination. Tourism isn't a side industry here. It's the economic engine. So any disruption to how it's funded, even one that sounds procedural, could ripple through the entire state. In short, HB 1221 may look like a simple policy tweak, but for Florida's tourism sector, it could change the game entirely. Part 2, why this matters, Florida's tourism by the numbers. To understand the potential impact of Florida HB 1221, we have to look at the numbers. Because Florida's tourism industry isn't just big, it's massive. In 2023 alone, Florida welcomed over 135 million visitors, according to data from Visit Florida, the state's official tourism marketing agency. That's more tourists than the entire population of Japan, or more than 3 times the population of California. Those visitors spent over $100 billion in the state. That money touches every corner of Florida's economy, from the family-run beach motel in the Keys to the food truck parked near Orlando's theme parks. But here's the key point. Out of that economic activity, $3.8 billion in direct tax revenue came from tourism. Much of it through the tourist development tax, the very tax that HB 1221 seeks to reframe. Now, why does that matter? Because that tax revenue helps fund tourism promotion, the engine that keeps visitors coming in the first place. And it's not just ads on billboards or glossy travel brochures. It supports international campaigns, travel trade shows, partnerships with airlines, and online visibility, especially for lesser-known counties that don't have a Disney or a South Beach. According to an independent analysis, for every $1 Florida spends on tourism marketing, the state sees a return of $3.27 in tax revenue. That's a 327% return on investment, which raises the question, why would you want to reduce or destabilize funding for something that pays back more than triple? Supporters of the bill argue the money could serve other community needs. But critics say if the funding pipeline slows or gets caught up in political cycles, Florida could lose market share to competitor states that guarantee long-term tourism investment. In an industry where perception, visibility, and consistency are everything, even a small disruption can have lasting effects. And that's why HB 1241 is raising concerns, not just among economists, but from local officials and business owners who understand just how delicate the tourism ecosystem really is. Part 3, who wins and who loses? Let's break this down further. If Florida HB 1221 becomes law, who actually benefits and who could lose out? On one side, supporters of the bill, including many aligned with Governor Ron DeSantis' fiscal platform, say the goal is fairness. They argue that tourist development tax funds have been too locked in, with little public oversight, and they make the case that local counties should have the flexibility to redirect some of this money toward things like housing, infrastructure, or lowering property taxes, especially in fast-growing areas struggling with affordability. That's a politically appealing argument. But on the other side are tourism boards, chambers of commerce, small business coalitions, and local officials who say this law could cripple their ability to stay competitive. Here's why. Unlike large corporations, think Disney, Universal, or major hotel chains, small and medium-sized tourism businesses rely heavily on county-level marketing to bring visitors in. They don't have global branding budgets. They depend on cooperative campaigns, digital ads, and visitor centers funded by public tourism dollars. Take Monroe County, home to the Florida Keys. In 2023, nearly 80% of their tourism promotion budget came from the tourist development tax. If that money gets reallocated, they don't just lose ads. They lose bookings, jobs, and local tax income. Even more concerning is the uncertainty this bill could create. If every 8 years, counties have to debate whether to keep or reapprove TDT use for tourism, how do you plan long-term campaigns? Tourism doesn't work on election cycles. It works on seasons, trends, and global competition. Meanwhile, other states are doubling down. California invests over $100 million annually in tourism marketing. New York, close to $60 million. If Florida stalls, those states are more than ready to fill the gap and capture the attention of travelers looking elsewhere. So while some local governments might gain temporary budget relief, the long-term risk is a slow erosion of Florida's tourism dominance. And that's a gamble not everyone is willing to take. Part 4, a political power play? Now, some observers say that Florida HB 1241 isn't just about budgets or policy. They argue it may reflect a deeper political strategy and possibly an ideological shift in how the state approaches tourism. Let's start with a recent flashpoint, the high-profile clash between Governor Ron DeSantis and Disney. When Disney publicly opposed the parental rights in education law, what critics called the Don't Say Gay bill, Governor DeSantis responded by targeting Disney's special tax district, known as Reedy Creek. This move ultimately led to the creation of the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, putting state-appointed leaders in charge of a region once run by Disney itself. To some, this looked like a fight over corporate influence. To others, it was a clear sign that Florida's leadership was willing to politicize tourism, even if it meant undermining long-standing partnerships. That wasn't the only sign. In 2023, the state quietly removed LGBTQ+ travel content from Visit Florida's website, prompting backlash from civil rights groups and tourism operators alike. These actions matter, not just culturally but economically, because in today's global tourism market, perception is currency. If Florida is seen as politically hostile or culturally exclusionary, it risks alienating entire segments of travelers, especially international tourists, younger demographics, and the LGBTQ+ community. So the question becomes, is HB 1221 part of a broader effort to reshape Florida's image, or is it just a coincidence that, alongside budget changes, we're seeing more top-down control of tourism narratives? Either way, the line between economic policy and political messaging is getting harder to ignore. So, what does all of this mean for Florida? HB 1221 may sound like a simple accountability measure, But when you follow the money, the politics, and the long-term economic stakes, it starts to look like a pivotal moment for one of the state's most important industries. Florida's tourism economy brings in over $100 billion each year, supports millions of jobs, and funds everything from local businesses to public services. Disrupting its funding model, even with good intentions, could cause ripple effects that stretch far beyond hotel taxes. At the same time, voters and local leaders deserve a voice in how tourism dollars are spent. The real challenge? Balancing smart governance with economic foresight without letting short-term politics jeopardize long-term prosperity. Florida HB 1221 isn't just a bill, it's a test of priorities, of strategy, and of whether Florida can continue to lead the U.S. in tourism without tripping over its own policies. Now we want to hear from you. Should local governments be allowed to redirect tourism tax dollars toward other priorities? Or should those funds stay dedicated to keeping Florida's tourism industry strong and globally competitive? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown informative, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more deep dive policy coverage, and share it with others who care about where economic policy meets everyday impact. Thanks for watching, and take care.